This is Charlie Talby with Talby Consulting.
Greg Kitson with Mind's Eye Graphics.
Pierre with Blue Moon.
This is Marcia Derryberry with Impressions Magazine.
And you're listening to the Two Regular Guys.
Two Regular Guys.
Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted
by Terry Combs and
Aaron Montgomery.
It's the first and most listened to favorite weekly internet radio show in the industry. Take a listen.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, everyone. It is Friday, July 27th, 2018. I'm Terry Combs with Equipment Zone, and you can also find me at terrycombs.com.
And I'm Aaron Montgomery, and you can find me at aaronmontgomery.info. Today, we're going to be talking to Don Copeland of Compressed UV Printers, a division of ColDesi, and he's going to give us a rundown on the state of UV printing in our industry as well as share kind of where the technology is headed. And we've had Don on the show before, but we've going to bring him on for the video version. We haven't talked to him about UV, so this is going to be a lot of fun today, Terry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since we've chatted with Don, and even in our pre-show, the conversation got extended to the point where it was almost time to start the show. So absolutely. I think we're just going to let him loose, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we love about Don. And we can get plenty of great content and have a lot of fun with them. So exactly. I'm looking forward to talking to Don. It's been a while since we've had a chance to do that. We all go way back. The three of us go back probably 12, 15 years, something
exactly.
like that. So,
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Terry, before we do bring Don in, what news items did you see this week? Yeah,
I saw that Transfer Express is going to be hosting a webinar called Placement Techniques for heat transfers, and that's going to be on August 9th. The company says the session helps decorators boost profits by streamlining production and reducing rejects. And it's going to be a live interactive class. Lots of demonstrations of full front, left chest, sleeves, leg transfers. The event discusses the pros and cons of 4 transfer positioning tools and explores unique positioning options to help shops. And coming from my standpoint, where people attend my classes and seminars, this is a really important subject and something that especially new decorators should take advantage of. The free session runs from 2 to 3 Eastern time, and we'll have the link up on our website. Again, that's August 9th from 2 to 3 Eastern Standard Time.
Awesome. Yep, that would be a good one. I'm actually working with a consulting client right now, getting his transfer business put together, and so I will be recommending that he attends. So
exactly, good idea.
Good stuff. So my news bit is just a hair outside of our industry, but I thought anybody that's using any messaging apps these days, I saw this and I thought this was interesting. And Wired magazine has declared the office messaging wars are officially over, and Slack has won. So let me explain a little bit. They said last September, the software company, and I'm not even going to get it right, so I'm going to skip it, launched a new workplace chat called Stride, aimed squarely at taking on Slack. And they gushed in March. We've been thrilled by the excitement we've seen from the tens of thousands of teams who have adopted it. But then less than a year later, they have announced that they are pulling the plug on the product along with its earlier workplace chat, HipChat. So as of February 15, 2019, Slack will probably be the go-to. I know for us, Terry, we've used Skype a little bit in the past, and that seems to be getting more and more buggy, and we've tried some Hangouts and stuff like that. I know with one of my consulting clients, Pick the Gift, we use Slack quite a bit. So I don't know, might be worth taking a look at. They seem to be the go-to here.
Yeah, speaking of Skype, what technology gets worse and worse and worse the more you use it. We used it at Equipment Zone as well, and we had to just take it off our computers. It was you'd send a message and it would pop up on somebody's screen 2 hours later. Yeah. The whole point of instant messaging is instant. So
yeah, you could have just mailed a letter.
I know. My gosh.
All right. Well, we've got some folks checking in here, and had a couple people already saying hello, and got some live viewers. So that's exciting stuff. But Christine just mentioned, Christine Shree from Enmart. She says, I like Slack. I've used it in the past on projects, and it's always worked well. So there's another vote for Slack. Good for them.
Very good.
All right. Well, Sorry, I lost my place there. So we're going to also want to remind everybody to stay tuned to the very end of the program for It's 5 Things. And our guest is actually going to stick around for us a little extra time and give us some additional information on UV printers. And so this will be a segment you don't want to miss today. Looking forward to hearing what Don's got to say for 5 Things.
Absolutely. 5 Things is, going on even a couple of, almost 2 years now, but it's certainly a favorite of all of our listeners and a favorite of ours as well. But we want to thank everybody for listening, and we are really pleased to bring you this show every week since February 2013. So we're well into our 6th season. We always try to avoid those rants and lecturing and selling, and we would love to have you visit our website, which is 2 regularguys.com. Check out the show notes. I'm sure Don today is going to be referencing lots of things, and we'll have links to everything we're discussing today on our website. We would love for you to make suggestions for future shows, and a lot of the shows we do are based on our listeners' recommendations. You can do that through our Contact Us page at 2regularguys.com, and of course, we are all over social media at the number 2 Regular Guys. And if you're watching us right now live on Facebook, we'd love to have your comments, your insights, your questions. Let's have a little participation out there from our listeners, and as we always do. And Aaron, before we move forward, though, let's hear a word from the Specialty Graphic Imaging Association, SGIA, and a discussion of their upcoming SGIA Expo.
Hi, this is SGIA's Dan Marks, inviting you to attend the SGI Expo in Las Vegas this October. We're going to show you what's on the horizon, with more than 500 exhibitors showing the latest in dye sub, screen, embroidery, DTG, and more. We have 72 educational sessions, including a garment decoration track, and a special luncheon just for garment decorators. Registration is free through September 19th. Learn more at sgia.org/expo2rg.
And the most important part there was /2RG. Make sure you add that when you check it out as SGIA.
Exactly. SGIA.org/expo2rg is where you want to go find information. I actually had, for those watching on the video version, I actually had the website up there. You can register and attend, and I'm super excited for that expo, Terry. I'm going to be there actually Wednesday, and may actually stay all the way through the weekend. I think my wife might come out for a little Vegas excursion. So,
very nice. Very nice. I know I'll be there. I have no idea when. It's, my schedule, Aaron. So.
Yeah. You'll tell me 2 days before.
I'm leaving early tomorrow morning for Huntington Beach, California, and my 18-year-old daughter and I are going to go out for the second time to watch the Vans International Surfing Championships. So, and no, I won't be surfing, but
watching, not surfing. All right.
Exactly.
All right, good deal. All right, Terry. Well, let's bring in our guests. I'm going to have to do a little jumping here, Terry. So if you're gone and you come back, don't worry. Okay. Trust me. I know what I'm doing here. But I'm
an expert.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, here we go. And there we go. We got all right. I'm an expert, I promise.
I got the old countdown in my ear, so I knew I was coming back.
It really worked exactly the way I wanted it to. But want to welcome back to the show Don Copeland. Don is the digital products manager for ColDesi and has been with the company for over 14 years. He has had more than 28 years of industry experience. Prior to his time working with UV products, he had nearly 13 years as the direct-to-garment product manager and is now in charge of UV printers, a division called Compress UV. Welcome in, Don.
Hey guys, thanks. I didn't read all this stuff. I'm not allowed to rant. I'm not allowed to lecture. I'm not allowed to sell. I'm out.
No, we're not allowed to. You can knock yourself out, man.
Hey, it was awesome catching up beforehand as well. Like I said, it's been way too long, and we tried, Aaron, but you did get Terry back. You remember what we talked about before?
I was going to do that.
Did not work out.
Okay. Well, I'm going to recurse myself for a second, and then I'm just trying to get the windows to work out right.
Here today, it's really awesome.
Fantastic. So, hey, Don, get us started off with a quick rundown of what UV printing technology is and its benefits to our listeners, primarily garment and product decorators.
Cool, great. Yeah, it's a great question because I don't think a lot of people really understand what UV is all about. I mean, we think of UV in our conversation as being digital, but UV has been around even in screen printing. A lot of like bottles and stuff, things like that are printed with UV inks as well. It's a great method for you want things to be quickly set. Maybe you want things to have some texture to them. But basically what UV printing is in our world it's an inkjet printing with a specialty ink. And the UV inks themselves, they dry via either, it's sometimes called photochemical, sometimes called photomechanical process. But basically what happens, you inkjet down onto the substrate, and then the UV lights come across. I know Terry and Aaron and I appreciate this most probably in the early SGIAs, maybe when it was SPAI, and you went by and there's like these, 75-foot wide machines, it was like, right? And there was this glowing light, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What those lights do is they actually change the ink itself. They're not water-based inks. So they actually take the liquids and turn them into a solid. They exist is the way I like to talk about it. It's not like when we print onto a t-shirt where the inks absorb in, or on paper where they absorb in. These inks exist. And that's why we can play games with textures and stuff as well. So where does it differ from what we're used to? It's used in a lot of cases to print on finished goods. Dimensional type of items, things that have some depth. You're going to look at the printers on the marketplace in the small to mid format range. They're going to range anywhere from a couple inches of depth, height of the item they can print, up to, a standard of, standards of up to about a foot. Our machines go up to about 11.8 inches tall. And there's some machines on the marketplace that you can get options up to almost 18 inches tall that you can print directly on finished items. So that's one of the areas where it's different. Right? We say UV LED too. You'll hear that catchphrase a lot. The early UV printers and still some of the larger ones used mercury. It's like a mercury type of lamp or mercury vapor lamp. There's like 3 different types of mercury vapor lamps. And while they're very effective, very high curing, they're very high maintenance. Typically, they have a max life of about 2,000 hours of exposure. They're expensive. They get very hot. In some cases, you had to go in and like turn them on. It's kind of like you remember when you're in the school gymnasium and the lights went out, everybody goes, crap, we can't play the basketball game. We got to wait like 10 minutes till the lights come back up. They have a heat up period as well. Whereas the LED UVs, they're on or they're off, very low temperature relative, and very low energy. The lamps on our machines are rated for 20,000 hours of illumination. And remember, they're not on continually. They're only on when the head is scanning. So that kind of gives you a breakdown of what the actual machines themselves and what the process is. We use flatbed printers. Flatbed means we can transit items through the machine. Going back to the early stages of the direct-to-garment printers, we had to transit the garments underneath of the head. It's not like something feed through like a piece of paper on a roll like they do in the sign industry. So we use flatbed printers. Pretty beefy ones. Our larger machine actually has the ability to carry 133 pounds. That's a pretty heavy item. We've put entire truck tires on it and then stretched over tire truck covers to put like the RV and things like that on them. So it's pretty heavy duty. So what are the advantages to the end user? Number one, it allows you to really stretch your imagination. And again, I'll go back to our time together in the early days. Everybody who called us wanting to look at direct-to-garment printers, right? They wanted to print on something else. Where, right?
I want that machine that prints on everything, please.
So this allows you to take your creativity outside of just standard wearable items or standard items that you're going to later put onto something. You can take constructed items and decorate them, which is pretty cool. I mean, cell phone cases is a perfect example. Huge marketplace for custom cell phone cases. You get great set with them. They're not solvent based. You've seen some of the earlier machines on the market that were maybe doing cell phone cases. There you go, right? I mean, yeah, we all have, our cell phones have something on the back of them nowadays. It allows you to do custom because it's instantaneously set. You don't have a gas out period, right? When you would print the cell phone cases with the solvent based solutions, you have to let the solvents gas out. So, I mean, that's one place where it fits. Another real benefit is, whereas we think of direct to garment as digital screen printing, right? For lack of a better phrase. This is digital pad printing, but it's 4-color processed pad printing, so to speak, which really, really ups the game in printing on rigid goods, is being able, because when you do pad printing, I don't even know that they can do 4-color process pad printing. I don't think it's that precise. I know you can do multicolor. I've seen 6-color spot color machines and whatnot. It's just not practical for most people to do multicolor, and certainly not in moderate to short run type of stuff. So that's the areas where it really starts to open up, and it plays on the same mentality for the ad specialties and all the rigid goods as we played on with direct to garment 15 years ago, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the breakout of the advantages and what it's about.
I think that calling it, explaining it as digital pad printing makes it, kind of clears it up in people's minds what you can do with it. That makes a lot of sense. And I love the fact that, Don, this type of printing must be very philosophical, because the inks exist. I like that.
It is. Existential inks. We offer them. Yes, we do.
Therefore,
you can look at it and see, and it's cool. A lot of the stuff that we've probably thought about and thought we knew about printing, about, if people ask you how much does it cost to print this area, we'll go, if it's a black box versus a yellow box, it costs more, right? They don't understand why, right? Because yellow is 100% yellow. Black is like 330% mix of colors. When you print it with UV, you can look at the height of it, and it's obvious. Because if you were to do a direct dimensional, you'll start to see it. That's how we can raise letters up on signage and things like that, to do different types of things, or do textures on prints. I'll show you a textured print here in a bit, and you'll see what that's about.
Cool.
Well, I'm going to date myself, because when you're talking about mercury vapor lights, mercury vapor, I remember as a kid, even as young as 7, when I'd hear the street lights click on, I knew I had 10 minutes to get home, because I had to be home before the street lights came on.
Right. And then we all, like I said, when you were at the school gymnasium, the lights went out in the basketball game. You knew, all right, we're going to be 10 minutes before we can start playing again, right?
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, while we're all discussing about how old we are, or the veterans that we are, there was a comment, Don, that I wanted to make sure we got out in front of you here. Jeff tells us that Don sold us our first rhinestone setter a zillion years ago.
Hey, Jeff. I remember
didn't
you.
realize.
You know, man.
I didn't realize you were that old, Don, but I knew you were a veteran.
Right. Well, and Terry's the one that trained me in.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy. All right, Don. Let's get back on track before we know that this will get off the rails quickly. So just bear with us.
We've been on the rails?
Not normally, but hey, that's what makes it fun. So, Don, okay, so you talked about some great stuff. There are some really interesting information about UV. But let's talk about how this might fit into our regular listeners' business. We've got a lot of t-shirt screen printers, a lot of direct-to-garment kind of users. Where does this fit into their business?
That's a really, and that's part of what I'm going to address in the 5 points as well. But we both know that we all know that the days of identifying ourselves as an embroiderer, a screen printer, a trophy guy, they're fading.
Yep.
And I always use the Walmart analogy. You can go into Walmart, you're picking up some toilet paper, you're getting some eggs and some milk. You want to grab a quick bite to eat. There's probably a McDonald's there while you're recharging your cell phone. Your wife's getting her nails done. You get the idea. One-stop shopping. We're looking for that
while they're changing out your tires and the tires.
Exactly right. That's the we want it all at one place, and it's only logical that we would get it done in one place. And so you have customers that are coming into you for T-shirts or hats or whatever it is that you're printing for them, and they've got other needs in most cases. Very rarely is somebody just buying shirts that don't associate with something, all right, or they couldn't add something to it. And so I think that's where the opportunities are for your traditional T-shirt guys. As we were talking about offline earlier, if you go back in the sign industry 15, 18 years ago, it was the people who were leading edge who had large formats, right? Now, if you don't have a large format eco-solvent printer, you are not in the sign industry. And more screen printers, trophy and award shops, things like that, are now bringing in the large format technology to do signage and direct print. You remember the days when you put magnetics on cars? I mean, now they wrap a Volkswagen and make it look like a pizza, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing but what we're seeing now is more and more companies are starting to be full service because you've already done the graphics work. That's the thread that goes through all of this is the graphics, the artwork, right? So you take the graphics and the artwork, and now why not put it out in every direction method you can? Print it out, sublimate it, put it on coffee mugs, put it on a mouse pad, print it on a t-shirt, print it on a banner. Let's give them promotional items, thumb drives, pens, stuff like signage for their operation. So, everybody that you're dealing with has got more to their life and more to that graphic you're working with generally than just that garment you're printing for. But I think those are the areas that really we see opportunity. And that's the low-hanging fruit. That's what a lot of people don't quite get on this, is that your existing customer base is buying this stuff somewhere. You've already spent the sweat equity. You've spent the marketing money. You spent the personality time to build the relationships. It's an easy sale. It's always easier for me to sell a customer their second machine because all I've had to do is take care of them for that period of time. I remember some of our early marketing stuff. We would get yelled at if we didn't sell something. No, which is typical. But you get a lead, and if it didn't get followed up on, they come down. We pay $250 for these leads when they do the real math of what a lead generation costs us. And so you got to put money, you got to put effort into getting new customers, right? This is just an add-on. You can start selling stuff immediately to your other customers. But the other side of the coin is, then as the word gets out and you start marketing this new product, you're going to find customers who also need your core business, t-shirts, signs, whatever it is. So I think those are the applications where it kind of fits in, and getting out of the mindset that I am a apparel, I am a screen printer. You can broaden it saying I'm an apparel decorator, or you can just say, hey, we're solutions people, right? I heard an ad in there from Mind's Eye Graphics in the early part of it. They always push about the fact that theirs is about whatever's in your mind's eye. That's what we're here to do. We're to get ideas out to people. And that's really what this is about, is expanding that reach to your customers and giving them the opportunity to be as creative as they can using their logos to grow their business or whatever it is, nonprofit or whatnot.
Right, exactly. Be a problem solver. Hey, Don, tell us a little bit about some of the markets and market segments this technology is growing in right now, and how is it replacing some other printing technologies?
Good one. I think that probably I see the most potential in. Now, remember, a lot of my core roots go back to the sign industry, but one that's really, really easy for people to get into, and there's a ton of business for it, is in the coroplast sign market. 1824. Sometimes we call them down here in Florida, we call them bandit signs. Lose 30 pounds in 30 days type of stuff, that kind of stuff beside the road. But
vote for me.
yeah, exactly. But then there's the other ones that you start to see. I don't know if they've sprung up in your areas, where there's a company who is termiting this, who's tenting this place for termites, or they're doing a roofing job, or they're doing a remodel. I've even seen, believe it or not, lawn services now, and they keep these step in the ground stake signs that have all their information right on the sign. That's a huge marketplace.
Yeah.
The process these days is you get a piece of coroplast. First, you take your eco solvent, you print out the sign, which now has to be gassed out. Usually the outgassing is an overnight process. Then if you want it to have more of an extended outdoor life, you need to laminate it. Then you have to mount it on each side, right? And with UV, you're printing straight to the sign blank. It's immediately dry. It's immediately deliverable. Your ink costs are about the same on UV versus an EcoSol per the square foot. You don't have the cost of the vinyl. You don't have the cost of a laminate, and you don't have the cost of labor. That's just a huge marketplace where you can step up with this piece of equipment immediately, whether you're a t-shirt guy, a sign guy, trophies and awards, anybody. If they understand graphics and they have the graphics, they can print, and they immediately are now making money, giving a customer a quick turnaround, and eliminating a ton of labor. I mean, I went up to one of the major large format companies' sites, and they figured the estimate for printing basically brought it. If you do a two-sided, these are 18 by, this is an example of a, 1824 right here, right? It's an 18 by 24 type of sign. That's basically 3 square feet, right? When you do the numbers on them, they were $2.50 to $3.50 for the vinyl and the ink. That sign right there, our calculations of our software was 72 cents a side. So say $1.50 versus $2.50 to $3.50, just in materials. You don't have the labor and you don't have the cost of the lamination as well. So I think that's one of the really, really big growth areas. But there are other ones. A lot of, Etsy is like, it's crazy. People that we deal with who are making bank on Etsy, and a lot of the stuff up there, you'll see customization. A lot of that stuff's hand printed or hand painted, hand decorated. And a lot of that stuff can be simulated very easily with somebody who has some craft and Photoshop and whatnot with different formats. So you can take a lot of customers we deal with, and they're slowly starting to migrate in. They're starting to use UV for that, because you can print on raw wood with this. You can print on metals. So you can get antique looking items and stuff just by printing that antiquing look onto it. So I think that's another area where you're starting to see more and more growth of digital is into to especially wood decoration. And then lastly, I think one of the more common ones would be anybody that's in the ad specialties marketplace. Everybody wants to look big. I mean, that we see it in DTG, people wanting shirts for their concert, right? And they got like 11 friends coming over to their backyard. They print up concert T-shirts, right? The same concept.
Yeah.
With this is, I'm starting my own business. I don't want to have 1,000 pens printed up. I can go in and get 48 pens printed up, full color on this, no setup fees, ready to go. USB thumb drives to hand out. We've got one of our customers that we're working with right now. He has this thing that you actually put in your wallet. It's got like a screwdriver and wrenches and a bottle opener, which you would appreciate, Terry. But he's IDing these things. By the way, he's making these things business cards. So that's the way he's marketing a business, right? Yeah. You give us your business, your construction or whatever, and you talk about it. Say, here you go. You're handing them it's probably a $4 item. You wouldn't do it to somebody if you were just selling widgets, but if you got a real business where it's a high dollar thing, instead of handing him a business card, he's handing something that the guy's going to put in his wallet, be able to be here at the football game. That's something you can do with digital, and you're not going to buy 1,000 of those. You're going to buy 50 or 100. So anything like that, those are just areas where it's really replacing pad printing, traditional sign printing methodologies. And I didn't even touch on the fact you can do metal signs and outdoor stuff as well, where it's again, eliminating the whole process because you're direct to substrate.
Don, I'm loving the idea. I keep going back thinking about what you said with the lawn care folks and putting a sign in the front lawn saying the name of their lawn service and phone number, and what a great idea that is to go around and market. And how many lawn services are there in all of our towns? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's huge. And, people go by and you see some activity at a house, you look towards the house, right? We call them 50-50 signs. They're meant to be seen from 50 feet away at 50 miles an hour. But all of a sudden you get some pop. You're able to give them full color, right? Big lettering, with either the name of the company, the website, or a phone number. And it's not something we would traditionally see. You would just said, there's a bunch. And then you're trying to look at the truck as you go by to see what's on the side of the truck and stuff. Right. When you see that sign out in the yard, I mean, down here in Florida, it's our churches that we call our churches a T-shirt and sign church. We do signs, coroplast signs for the streets, and that's our number 2 most common way where people find us when they come into our church and tell us where they came from. Coroplast signs are a huge tool for organizations like that. Neighborhood associations, when they have the monthly meeting to get together, seeing a lot of that as well. So I think those are all opportunities, places where now we have a better method, and importantly, to your average customers in the screen industry or in the T-shirt industry, you don't have to learn the application technique, right? Because it's a direct to substrate. That's huge. Not having to learn it. That's the thing that sign guys have had on people forever. I mean, if we ever find a way that we can take and UV print Volkswagen buses, things like that, to do advertising. That's the real secret to signage is application technique.
Yeah. Don, I actually have 2 of my own sign examples. One, our city, whenever there's a change to the trash pickup schedule, every single one of the neighborhoods has a little chloroplast sign out front that says, pickups the next day. So that, but then the other one, this is really kind of a interesting story. When we get hail here in Missouri, you guys in Florida and Arizona probably don't know anything about this, but there is a mass of storm chaser kind of construction guys that go around whenever there's a big hailstorm, because they're all coming to get your roof business.
Right.
In Missouri, you just hope for a big hailstorm about 10 years after you get your roof, because then you can get a new roof for free from insurance. So yeah, these guys are, like clockwork. It's like they're ants on the prowl the next day after a storm, just going house to house, trying to sell you their roofing services. And as soon as they get somebody signed up in that neighborhood, their sign goes out in your front yard. And it was really funny because, we picked guys that we thought we were going to work with, and they were nice guys. And in the next day, I see their sign in my front yard. I'm like, wait a second, nobody asked me about that. So I grabbed the sign and tossed it in the trash. Next morning, they show up again for whatever, another sign out there. I pick it up and goes in the trash. And this happened for like a week straight. And I was talking to the guy at the end of the when they were finally getting done with the roof, and he's like, yeah, these other companies, they come by and they take our signs and they throw them in the trash. I'm like, well, no, it was actually me. You guys never asked me if you could put your sign in my yard, so I kept throwing it away. I think you're nice guys, but you got to ask me first.
Right.
So,
that brings up to me another situation. I think that I don't know if it's regional or if it's nationwide, but it seems the last few years we're seeing a lot more high school graduation signs in people's yards.
Right.
And the ones that are really, really pushing it, they put their kid's picture on them. So it's not just say graduate of XYZ high school 2017-18 class, right? There's a picture of their son, the picture of their daughter. That's another area. Again, growth areas. A lot of the people may be coming to you for T-shirts. If you think about it in the same vein, things for like IMO, the IMO T-shirts and memory of T-shirts are pretty popular here in the South, especially. You'll see spins on that in memory of somebody as well. So anything that's high color, again, just take the whole spin that you put on T-shirts for digital and just put it on other objects. Short run, high color, high customization. The softwares that we include with our machines allow us to do variable data, allow us to do barcoding, allow us to do, a sequencing, all of that stuff. So you can bring in stuff and do highly customized, high color type of work for customers that just otherwise they wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
The high school graduation thing, I see a lot of that on the East Coast. So hopefully folks in the other parts of the country are taking note of that. Having that sign out and I have a high school graduate from XYZ high school. That's a great marketing tip.
It's huge. Absolutely. Yeah, I said, yeah. And it's they put it out for like a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that's not a $5 sign. That's a $20 sign, especially if you put their kid's face on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Totally. So, Don, one thing I wanted to go back that I kind of saw in the notes that stood out to me a little bit, and to make sure we covered it. I saw a note mentioning some white ink. Can you kind of give us a little bit of rundown on that?
So when we think a lot of rigid goods, a lot of times we're thinking of items that aren't white, right? We're thinking, a lot of the stuff that maybe in the trophy and the awards industry would historically have been sublimated, which, as we all know, while sublimation's got some cool applications, it's very finite, and the type of material is very finite and needing to be on white or very light colors. With UV printing, most UV printers are actually going to have 6 color channels. You're going to have your traditional cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You're going to have white, and then you're going to have a varnish or clear as well, which can be used to give you, better buildup for textures. The clear can be used for overcoating, highlighting. You can actually even do things to do effects. Like if you had a Coke bottle and you wanted to put a droplet on it, you could build up a texture to look like a droplet. But so, those are all things also that bring, just like we did in direct to garment, that we bring to the table, that expands the range of things that you can work on. It's really important in pre-manufactured items, or for companies who are coming to you with components they need printed on. It's not, in fact, I would say in the pad printing industry, that probably 5% of the items you print on are white to start with. It's not as anywhere near like it is in the t-shirt industry, where maybe 30 or 40% are light to white. So that's huge, is having the ability to do white. Having softwares that generate the underbase is very much so the same type of underbase. I mean, you guys will appreciate, we use CADLink for our software, so they're using the same technologies that were used in the underbasing and whatnot for the t-shirt. It's just more exciting because we play more with layers. We can print on the back of clear and things like that, but very much the same process.
Okay. All right. So Don, we've got a couple of viewer questions here that I want to get to before we keep going on with our stuff here. So I'm going to pop this one up, but then I'm going to read it because it's a little bit long, but a really good question. So Jeff asked Don UV question, how hard is it to rehab a well-used 6-year-old UV printer? Have someone who wants to give it to us. It was properly cleaned, kept in store, but wonder if it's worth the effort. Printer is still being sold for about $20,000 new. Thinking maybe it would be a tool to use until we see if a new one can pay for itself. It's very different to fix and maintain. Is it very different to fix and maintain compared to an Ecosolve or other inkjet? So I'll let you tackle
So
that
it's
one
6
first.
years is a long time, right? I don't know how long it's been sitting there capped. The inks are different, and the inks have matured in the last few years. They're not as obnoxious, believe it or not, as the water-based. If somebody were to tell you, let's go back in time, if somebody said, hey, I've got a T-jet from 6 years ago that's been turned off, you would say, burn it, right? Everything that touches ink is shot. With UV, if it was flushed out, there's a bit more opportunity. The challenge to UV is, even though UV inks for the most part aren't solvent, there are a couple that are solvent based on our eco-solvent, based on the market. Most of them, they're not water-based either. And so they don't set up as bad as the water-based would. They aren't as obnoxious on the rubber and stuff and the plastics and whatnot as an eco-solvent would, but they still have a lifetime. And the print heads, the dampers you use, the capping assemblies you use, the wiper blades you use are not traditional water-based. So their print head prices are roughly triple the cost. Dampers are usually about the same price. The lines are a little bit more expensive. Capping stations are probably 30 or 40% more expensive. And if you're getting a machine that's been hibernated, you're probably going to have to replace all those things to find out if there's anything else wrong with it. So that's the trade-off. And getting software to drive it, if it's a current model, if it's where the company is still current, you probably will be able to get some follow through with that. It really would depend on what the price. If they're giving it to you for $2,000, that's a good leveraged gamble. But you're probably going to throw at any $4,000 or $5,000 at it for all of the plumbing and everything to get it up. You probably have to update the software as well. The inks, UV inks typically have a shelf life of a year. So you're looking at buying full sets of inks for most of these machines. The price gamut for inks in the liter stages is anywhere from a little over 200 to around 500 a liter. So it's a bit more expensive. When you go cartridge based, a full set might be. I like Jeff's price. The price is right, Jeff. You're probably going to be you're going to be $5,000 into the project to find out if it works, I would guess.
For our podcast listeners, Jeff just posted up that the price of that machine is $0. So
$0. You may be paying exactly what it's worth. It's hard to tell, but that's really the challenge. These guys can testify on any digital printer. If it doesn't print, right? You got to start with the head. But by the time you work yourself back, you may find out it's a motherboard. And at that point, then you have to make, end of life decisions about the machine. That's kind of the gamble that I would say.
I love the way you phrase things, Don.
Right.
End of life decision. Here's always my advice to people who are entering into a different segment of the market or entering into the industry to start with. I always say never start with a used piece of equipment until you know what you're buying. Hey, an automatic screen printing press. Once you've run a press for a couple of years, then you know what you're buying and you know what you're getting into. If you start with a used piece of equipment, then you don't know what the standard is. You don't know It's like pushing a boulder uphill when you start out with used. I'm all about buying used equipment once you know what you're playing with, but on the front end, there's so many things that could go wrong, and you don't know what you're dealing with. So
yeah, okay.
Exactly right. It's in a lot of cases. I know it's not the case with Jeff. In a lot of cases, people will get into the marketplace with the used equipment only because that's all they can afford, which is just a recipe for disaster, because that means they don't have a slush fund there to fix the inevitable issues that are going to be resident with a used machine. So, it'd be a situation of spending all of your money with no insurance policy, and that's just dangerous. You're better. I tell people on a regular basis, you're better to just keep saving your pennies so you can afford something, even if it's you buy a refurbished piece of equipment from a viable entity, the manufacturer, distributor, and whatnot. Then you at least have the support and the training that you need, especially this is a new marketplace. It is a completely different learning curve than any other type of printing or anything that we do. So you just be careful. But like I said, Jeff's a smart guy. He says it looks like it's worth it as a $1,000 gamble to him because the machine's free. Now, if you're paying $10,000 for a $20,000 machine and all of a sudden you got to put $5,000 into it, you have no warranty. Now it's like, that's not always wise. But I think from his standpoint, it's worth a try.
Yeah, definitely. Good feedback. Thanks for covering that, Don. I'm going to throw one more quick curveball at you from another listener here. Todd Dowling asked, are there any drawbacks to UV printers? We've talked about a lot of the advantages, but what might the drawbacks be?
So the drawbacks would be generally associated with expectations. Okay. They're not small machines for the most part. Inks aren't terribly expensive. I think for some folks, the drawbacks would be the fact that you've got a whole learning curve about something that's really foreign to you. And I don't mean printing on objects. I mean, understanding adhesion. That's been my biggest, it's been just a huge learning curve for me over these last about year and a half. We've been doing this. How comes it prints to this plastic or this metal well and not this one or that one? Number one, it prints well to everything just about.
Yeah.
The question is, does it stick? Is it scratch resistant? Is it chip resistant? Is it waterproof? So, the downside is you're going to have a learning curve on the items, which can be expensive. Yeti cups aren't cheap.
Yeah.
Practicing on Yeti cups becomes expensive, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. Downside to it, there is some odor associated with. You're going to be playing with a little bit more toxic things than you're used to. Not so much as in the inks, but a lot of the adhesion promoters are, fairly stinky. And, sometimes people actually do their treating away from the machines, or you have to put in a ventilation system. So there's more associated with it than just that. They're not as versatile as some people want them to be. They are probably the most versatile machines that I've ever been around, in the sense of you can throw more stuff at me than I can print than if you could throw at me with any other type of printing process that's out there digital, period. Right. I think the downside to them is sometimes people want to take them to the extreme edges and don't focus in on the core business, right? It's just the same thing we did with direct to garment. People wanted to print on canvases or things like this, which can be kind of cool, but don't buy the printer based on that. Buy the printer based on what it's meant to do. It's meant to print on t-shirts, right? And any gravy you can make over here printing canvases or printing coasters, that's cool, but you're not ever going to print enough canvases or coasters to make money. Yeah. So I think those are some of the downsides, if there are, and they're not cheap. The range we were talking about offline, that there's probably 5 or 6 of us are major players in this marketplace. So it's not quite as convoluted as the direct to garment, but the machines are all going to range from the low to mid 20s up into the 6-figure range, with the average machine probably being mid 30s to mid 40s. So that's a real investment. So, for some people, that would be the negative to it, is it's a serious investment. But we also find that it's not unusual to be able to make $120 to $150 an hour for your output effort on the machine on top of whatever your markup would be on the item yourself that you're printing.
Cool. Okay. Well, I appreciate you fielding that. I mean, it's got to find the right piece, and I think you got to give people the goods and the bad so that they can have a successful business. So, all right, Don, let's get back on our track here. But what are some of the biggest niche markets and segments the UV printers are serving? I know you've covered a lot of these already, but maybe just kind of give us a.
Well, we actually did a breakout of this for marketing just the other day. I was just sitting with my marketing guy, actually, I think it was yesterday. And we had gone through and just peeled off 2018 sales of machines, done our pie chart and all that. And our most common market, though it's not a majority, is people are in ad specialties of some kind, printing items that are logoed. Okay. Secondarily, anybody who is doing laser decoration. We're seeing a lot of people who've been doing etching, especially onto metals, especially a lot of them onto tumblers. That's a huge growth market, and it's a huge opportunity where now it's color etching. You're giving them full color onto the tumblers and the water bottles that are so popular and whatnot now. Interestingly enough, our third largest segment is companies that are manufacturers that are producing a product. Either they want to do mass customization on it, or they want to, it's a component of things. We have, like I said, I had the company that does the tie rod ends for their thing. They got a company that does components for Harleys that go over the valve covers to make personal ID on them. Company that does maple syrup bottles, things like this that are all kind of not the people we would know, non-SIC code searches, right? I'm not going to go out and go after this company versed on their SIC code, because I have no idea that they're doing their internal decoration. A lot of companies you'll see are starting to do in their manufacturing process, they're putting their safety warnings inside in a UV that is not a label you can peel off.
Oh,
right. So that's an interesting niche for this is out there, and it's an opportunity for folks who may be doing apparel and stuff for these companies that are manufacturers or whatnot, who are looking for ways to customize certain components that you can come in and offer customization opportunities. If you think about people who have electrical contractors, and they want to take that plate that's got all of your switches on it for your breakers, you take that sheet out, put it out, and print it permanently and UV instead of putting decals on it and things like that. Those are some opportunities that just were not even in our wheelhouse at all. Like I said, the military came to us. They're doing assault vehicles, and they're printing stuff on the outside of these panels for these assault vehicles with one of our UV printers. So that kind of marketplace, we're starting to see more in-house customization, which is cool, because what that does is that the big boys are doing it themselves in-house. The smaller players are now going to be scrambling to try to find out how they can kind of hang with them customization-wise. They can't afford the expenses in a lot of cases of high level, but they can come to you with 12 pieces, 24 pieces a month and have you do embellishment for them as well.
All right, super. Well, so Don, tell us about what you see in the future for the technology. Where's this heading, and what changes are coming our way?
So I think the changes from the technology, more and more are going to be in the ink side. There's not a bundle of stuff we're seeing right now in terms of the hardware. It's just like when you look at the large format market for the sign industry, there may be radical changes in the last 5-6 years. It kind of planed out a little bit. You've seen a little bit faster and things like that. But I think we're going to see some changes in the ink technologies. Probably one of the biggest challenges we face is this trade-off between rigid printing and flexible printing. So if you have something that flexes a lot, think of like if you wanted to do binders that people would carry around. This can be flexible. Leather goods. I've talked to several companies who do like leather binders and things like that. There's a trade-off between flexibility and rigid printing. Most of the items that people want printed are rigid, but then there are applications where you need flexible. It's different ink sets. And I know several of the ink companies I've been interfacing with are trying to work on this hybrid solution that's flexible yet performs well on some of the more difficult metals, more difficult types of plastics and whatnot. Whereas now, if you use flexible, you're going to have marginal performance over here. And when you use flexible, it tends to take a longer time. It has almost a slimy feel, a slippery feel for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours as it finishes drying out as well. So I think that the next major step we're going to see in the market is going to be chemistry. And the good news is that the chemistry is it's going to be plug and play chemistry. It's not going to change the hardware. We're working on some cool things I think that'll help us in the non-flat technology. And what I mean is rotary things, because that's a huge growth market. I think you're going to see over the next 3 or 4 years more and better solutions for cylindrical or conical shaped items to give you better performance, to be able to do. I mean, the marketplace has exploded. If you go back 3 years ago, you had Yeti and then a couple of wannabes.
Right.
And, now, I mean, in this room where you can't see, I bet I'm looking at 5 or 6 different manufacturers of tumblers, right? And they're getting sexier contours and stuff, which has become more challenging for being able to do embellishment on. And I think we're going to see more and better processes for handling those type of items as well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, that's great stuff, Don. I've got one other quick comment here that I wanted to have you address, and then because we're going to get into bonus time today. I knew this was going to happen with this group. But we've had a lot of good interaction from the viewers, so I want to make sure we get to those too. Jeff has said he heard a quote story about a problem and wants to know if it could be true. A person was printing a lot of highly reflective metal media. A reflection caused some ink curing at the print head. Can this happen, or is it baloney or BS?
Baloney? Is that how you spell baloney? It's true to some level. It's going to create more maintenance. And so you do have to, if you're doing reflective items, and glass can be a reflective item. The one I inferred to you about the maple syrup printer, his core business is maple syrup bottles are shaped like snowflakes that have a relief, right? So it's not a flat surface. There's some texture to it and whatnot. So you got light refracting off of all the directions. His machine just needs cleaning maintenance at about double the rate of a normal machine. I mean, when you're printing on stainless, you just got to be smart. The lights should be on the machine, should be angled slightly outward and not reflected back towards the head. So that should help to some degree. It's not going to be as much of an issue on items that are completely flat as much as it is items that have some curvature that you're coming off of. Yeah. So it's not completely baloney, but you will see the folks who are doing items that have some level of reflectiveness, whether it's metallic or whether it's glass or something like that, do just have to be a little more diligent. You seem to get more of a buildup on the ramps on your head on the back side, on the trailing side than you do. And it seemed to be more prevalent on those machines. But if you're doing your maintenance at the end of the day, it's not necessarily going to decrease the life of your print head or the machine. It's just going to increase your time scrubbing the bottom of the machine, the head and the carriage a little bit, but not anything earth shattering.
Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you so much for answering that. I know that we could probably go on and on for a long time here. I also wanted to ask you about like conical. You talked about tumblers and stuff like that, but I know you have some videos out there about that. So, in fact, Eric Campbell had said, I love the display that Don printed for Comic-Con. So after this is over, go over to the Facebook page and check that out, or the YouTube version here of the acrylic that you did there. So lots of good stuff. Speaking of that, Don, so where can people go to learn more, find you, ask more questions? Like I said, this is, I think, becoming more wide interest here. And, and so we'd love to send people your way.
Sure. Our home website is ColDesi, ColDesi.com. And on there, there'll be a jump off tab. We sell a lot of different apparel, decoration equipment, and other types of equipment. Just click on the Compress UV link. We also have our dedicated site is compressuvprinter.com, COMPRESS, then uvprinter.com. If they wanted to reach me directly, they can email me at dcopeland@coldesi.com. It's DCOPELAND at coldesi.com. And my toll-free number here is 877-793-3278. My extension is 1006.
All
Awesome.
right, super.
Well, Don, we're going to ask you to hang around, though, if you don't mind.
No
And
problem.
you can prep for any visuals that you need, because we're going to
Okay.
put you into the lobby for just a moment. And then we'll bring you back in just a moment for 5 things.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Hey, Aaron, it's always fun to have a guest on, and as you mentioned, you and I and Don go back many, many years. But I love having these subjects where I don't have a lot of background in, and hearing about a new decoration method and getting some ideas about how to market those products and that sort of thing. So, great show today with Don. And before we go any further, though, Aaron, let's hear a word from our longtime sponsor, Equipment Zone. Our show today is sponsored by Equipment Zone. Go to equipmentzone.com for the Epson F2000 direct-to-garment printer. Equipment Zone is the only Epson reseller who sends a technician to every customer location for training. This is an absolutely free visit to your location. Equipment Zone is also the manufacturer of the #1 pre-treat machine in the industry, the Speed Treater TX. With no compressor and no special tanks, the Speed Treater TX is the easiest and most consistent pre-treat machine available worldwide. Go to equipmentzone.com for the Epson F2000, the Speed Treater TX, and for all your DTG inks and supplies. That's equipmentzone.com. That's equipmentzone.com. And we appreciate all the support we've gotten from Equipment Zones right from the very start of this show. The Equipment Zone is going to be sponsoring a DTG Academy, a 2-day class, not only talking about how the machines run, but more importantly, how to create artwork, how to fix artwork, how to sell the product. And that is going to be in Phoenix and actually in Tempe, Arizona. September 21st and 22nd, and in the New York City area in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey. That's going to be on October 5th and 6th. And anybody who's going to be out in Long Beach next week, I'll be working the Equipment Zone booth at the NBM show. You can find that at thenbmshow.com.
All right. All right, Terry. Well, let's bring Don back real quick and get to It's 5 Things. So let me grab him back, and there we go. Don, are you ready for 5 things?
Right?
I can hear you and see you. All right. So you are on.
I love the little countdown. It's kind of neat. Bing, bing. But so I had plenty of time to prepare for this. I didn't find out about an hour before the show. So I had to come up with 5 things. And so what I want to do, since we've been talking mostly in the vein of talking to T-shirt guys, right? So let's talk about 5 things that you can do as add-ons using this type of equipment to your current customers. Because as we talked about, they don't just buy T-shirts, guys. They're buying other types of stuff. One thing would be temporary promotional signage. You may be doing signs for Relay for Life. You may be doing signs for different types of events, 5Ks, things like that, golf tournaments, things like that. So one marketplace would be the Coroplast signage, but maybe it's customized Coroplast signage like this for a golf tournament. So if you're doing the golf towels, which is a pretty cool thing to do with direct-to-garment, right? For a golf tournament of 125 people, you can do the sponsor signs, right? They don't want to go to another company for marketing. You can do these type of signs. You can also, if you're doing embroidery and doing doing garments and stuff for realtor open house signs, things like that. So that's one add-on. Your customers are buying, they're buying it from somebody else that you ought to look at doing. In the same vein, promotional items for that realtor or for the golf tournament, customized golf balls that have a logo on it. There is a logo on there. You may not be able to see it from there. But customized golf balls for a tournament, things like that to give away to your top level sponsors, custom with their logo on it and the event on it, things like that. Again, things that they are buying, pens, things like that, USB thumb drives. We have customized pens and things like this and thumb drives that you can just give as giveaways and stuff to the customers. Your customers are buying these things. So that would be another area. Now, permanent outdoor signage. You're doing T-shirts for a local bar or something like that. So maybe you want signs like this is just one we have that we printed out just for this goes next to my truck. For employee of the month. But you also, if you see a lot of these restaurants nowadays, they have reserved parking for the to-go. They run out and they bring you your stuff, things like that. Being able to print those signs up full color, their logo and everything, and they only need 2 or 3 of them, right? We're not talking about the Applebee's and the things like that where corporate gets hundreds of them printed to have their to-go on it. We're talking about the smaller restaurants who may want to have the same kind of thing to offer to their customers as well. So that's, again, something your customers who you're already doing the signage for, you're doing the shirts for the inside the bar, for the promotional shirts, for the waitresses and the waiters, whatever. That's something you can add to it. In the same vein, when you're still going with it, when you're doing an event, right, the golf tournament, or you're doing a 5K or anything like that, they give away awards. They give away sponsor plaques and trophies. So you've got things like these type of plaques back here. We have the acrylic awards where you can do back print. Again, stuff that your clients are buying already. They're just buying the T-shirt section from you. Think outside the box where they're at. And then probably permanently is retail items. So if you're doing, again, I'll go to a business that has clientele like a restaurant or a bar, especially if it's in a resort area or something where it's a destination. You think of, some of the great bars like, what's the one down in Key West? Terry, you've probably been there where the
Sloppy Joe's?
Sloppy Joe's. Thank you. You don't just go in there. It's not like you go to your local bar and you go, hey, I got to have a cup when I go home, right? But you're in Key West and you've had too many martinis, right? You want a cup. So you can do high dollar type of things like tumblers and things like that are retail items. People might, the bottle openers, and I don't have one here. The bottle openers, we've done several of these for customers for sample. The bottle openers, like the bartenders, that long bartender, and you have Sloppy Joe's or whatever it is on that as a keepsake. Things like that, or we use items like this. These are just a tile type of thing that you can use as coasters and whatnot. Much better than doing these things with direct to garment because you got a real permanent solution. These are not water soluble. Once these things are dried on here, they're permanent. So those are all kinds of ideas of 5 different areas where you can do add-on. Think of temporary promotional signage, promotional items for the customer, permanent outdoor signage, awards and plaques recognition type of stuff, and lastly, retail items that you can sell to your customer that they can sell to their customers as well.
Awesome.
That'd be the 5 things.
There we go. 5 things with Don Copeland of CompressUVPrinters.com. Don, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will catch you soon.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Fantastic.
All right,
that was awesome.
Gary, it was fun.
See, Sloppy Joe's, by the way, in Key West. Ernest Hemingway's favorite watering hole when he was writing all those incredible novels down in Key West. So that's why I know, not because I've been there several times. Wait, I have several times.
All right, Terry. Well, we are in bonus time, so let's go ahead and wrap it up here and get on off. I've got a couple events coming up I wanted to share with folks. As usual, I have my Saturday, Small Business Saturday videos that I do each Saturday, and I'm actually going to be coming to you from Minnesota tomorrow. We're heading to Minnesota this afternoon for my wife's 20th high school reunion. So I may or may not have some adult beverages tomorrow, but before that, I will be doing the top 3 things that every small business must be doing. So covering that, it will be 11:30 Eastern time is when we'll be doing that this week. Then Terry, August 16th, and hopefully it's on your calendar, but 2 p.m. Eastern, you and I will be doing a webinar with SGIA called Finding New Niche Markets Because You're a Digital Decorator. Don just gave us some great stuff to add to the list. So there we go.
Absolutely.
Well, let's fix the slides now. And then October 17th, a little further out, but this is going to be the start of the SGIA Expo. And I am super excited to be part of their Essential Small Business Strategies pre-show session. It's a session that goes from 1 to 4:30 p.m. the day before the SGI Expo, and there's going to be about 4 or 5, maybe 6 presenters just doing quick 40-minute presentations that small businesses need. And like Terry said, I get to be the headliner since I'm the last one going.
Exactly.
And I'll be talking about marketing your business online. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then hitting the SGA show floor the next day. And then Friday morning at 10:30 a.m., I will be presenting a full hour-long session on digital marketing, growing your business with social media and email marketing. So can't wait for SGA Expo. And if you're not already registered, do so now. I know that the hotels are already starting to book up. So get Terry, just make a call to somebody and tell them that they need to book those hotels. Okay.
I'll do that.
What about you, Terry? I know your travel schedule is always booked up. What's coming up here?
Well, the last act in Vegas is the headliner, so there you are, Aaron. But next week, August 1st, I'm going to be in Long Beach, California, doing a free day-long direct-to-garment seminar. It's the day before the NBM show opens there in Long Beach, so it'll be at the Long Beach Convention Center. August 2nd through 4th, I'll be exhibiting there in the Equipment Zone booth, and we're going to be doing some in-booth seminars. Myself and Jay Bassell are going to be talking about the top 10 markets for direct-to-garment printing. And August 22nd, I'll be back doing the all-day seminar. This is going to be the Secaucus / Meadowlands / New York City NBM show. They have to keep adding slashes to it because nobody can quite figure out where it is. But and then I'll be exhibiting there the 23rd and 24th of August. And then, Aaron, on September 8th, I'll be doing my intro to direct-to-garment printing seminar for the ISS show in Orlando. That's going to be on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. And all of my events through the end of 2018 are under tour dates at my website, terrycombs.com.
Awesome. All right. Well, get over there to check that out, terrycombs.com. Terry, we have come to the close of another show here today, and we want to thank our guest, Don Copeland, for joining us today. Great information, great talking to Don and catching up with him. We learned a ton about UV printers.
Absolutely. And we also want to thank our show producer, Eric Campbell. He's popping up all those websites and things like that up on the screen as the show progressed. And you can find Eric at Deco Network and also at ericcampbell.com. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors, the Specialty Graphic Imaging Association and Equipment Zone. We very much appreciate your support.
Absolutely. And Terry, next week, we're still kind of working on the show, so it's not set in stone yet. We've been attempting to get Jennifer Cox with an EP on to talk about everything going on with them. And they've got a show coming up pretty soon. But she is also collaborating with the NBM folks in Indianapolis. So she's been busy trying to get all that together. So we're going to try to pin her down and see if we can get her on the show, but we'll see. So stay tuned.
Jennifer has a schedule much like yours and mine, Aaron. So I
totally understand. We're not throwing any stones at her at all.
Exactly right. So until then, he's Aaron Montgomery. I'm Terry Combs, and we are the two
regular guys. Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.